Today, we're taking a look at an unhinged video from a woman who very openly says she hates all men and wants you to as well.
One of my biggest goals on this app is to train more women to be misandrous. It is not enough.
Guys, for context, misandrist is the opposite of misogynist. So instead of hating women, it means hating men. She wants to spread hatred against men on TikTok and is openly bragging about it. This is fine.
It is not enough to not like men or like, oh, they're okay. I want you to violently abhor men. You need to hate them. Like,
it's actually abhor is the correct pronunciation of that word. But more importantly, this is insane.
They do not deserve your respect. They are literally subordinate to women. Male socialization, like, makes every man subordinate to him. Look at them. They don't deserve anything from you. Like, I genuinely am a misandrist. Not that cute, like, oh yeah, I'm misandrist. No, like, girl, if we start talking about my shit, like, it gets a little scary because I don't think they deserve rights. And I don't give a f. And any man that tries to come, you're the exact type of loser, lame ass, broke ass, ugly ass man I'm talking about, loser.
Holy crap. That is one of the most unhinged videos I've seen on TikTok in a long time. And that is saying something. I'm going to give you more of my thoughts on the video, but first, guys, let's take a quick look at some of the comments, which were just eating this insanity up and affirming the Delulu. This video is actually really iconic, I fear. Love this energy. Immediate follow. Thank you, queen. I agree. They should all be put in chains. Oh, and only used for manual labor and forced BDing. No idea. Oh, not the way they like it, too. We need a drow matriarchal society. Another person wrote, I wholeheartedly agree with this. I believe in being a violent misandrist, not a palatable feminist. And the creator replied and said, yes, resistance is not supposed to be palatable. Well, babe, if your goal is to be unpalatable, it's working. Another person wrote, I've never followed someone so quickly. And another woman wrote, standing ovation, clap, 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 me too. And that comment has been liked 1,300 times. Are women on TikTok okay? I mean, I know this isn't most of them. I know this is like a tiny fringe of women on TikTok, which even women on TikTok are not representative of women at large. But like, this isn't good. This isn't stable or normal thinking. You shouldn't hate anybody. You shouldn't hate any demographic group of people blanketly, let alone want to encourage others to do the same. It's giving woke KKK. I mean, she literally said she doesn't want men to have rights. And maybe she's being intentionally somewhat hyperbolic for like comedic purposes or whatever, but I checked out her other content. This is not satire. This is not meant completely in jest or as a joke or something. She genuinely feels this way about men, and that's frightening. I'm really sorry for her in a way because maybe she's had some really bad experiences with men that have hurt her and led her to this dark place, but like, it's not fair to hate a whole group of people because of the actions of individuals who belong to that group. And I'm sure this woman, who for audio listeners is black, would understand that if, for example, I was mugged multiple times by two black men, it wouldn't be fair for me to then hate all black men or blame all black men or want them to lose rights. So no matter what experiences she's had with men that are negative, my heart does go out to her for anything that may have occurred, but it's not okay to let it bring you to this kind of dark, hateful place. Even from your own self-interest, this is not the best approach for you. Like, this is not a mindset or a worldview that will lend itself towards a happy life with friends or successful romantic relationships with men, or even just going about your day-to-day life in a productive and happy way can't occur when you despise half the population categorically. And again, I have to reiterate one of my complaints about TikTok. The most milquetoast, center-right, let alone conservative perspectives are routinely taken down as hate speech. But you can literally say whatever you want about men, about white people, whatever, and that's never considered hate speech. Just like what we were talking about earlier, I'd rather have it all be allowed. Like, that's my preference as somebody who believes in an open marketplace of ideas. But if you're going to have policies that restrict hate speech or attacks on groups of people, but then only enforce them, or at least mostly enforce them in one direction, that's not fair, and it's kind of messed up. But what do you guys think of this woman's video and of her content? Are you her new biggest fan, or do you, like me, have some concerns? Let me know in the comments, and do hit that like button while you're at it. Today, we're catching up with one of the most hated people on all of TikTok, Jeffrey Marsh, who's back with a disturbing, intolerant, and insane message for people out there who have family members who support Trump. Let's take a listen, and guys, jump scare warning.
Hi, should you cut off contact with family members just because they are voting for Donald Trump? Yes.
Oh?
If so far they have not been able or willing to listen to compassion, to listen to kindness, to listen to you, or even to do their own research and discover that hatred's not the answer, that love and kindness is the answer, if they are unwilling to change, they must experience consequences.
Oh?
And you should not withhold those consequences from them. The consequence in this case would be they don't get your beautiful, loving, wonderful presence in their lives. It's over. And they are gone. You need to make it real for yourself.
Ugh. I hate it here. Now, the comment section on this did eat Jeffrey up. And while I don't support the mean comments, some of them did make me chuckle a little bit. One person said, "Should you cut off contact with your hairdresser? The answer is yes." Another person wrote, "It puts the lotion on the skin vibes." Another person wrote, "Family's more important than politics, at least to me. Amen." Another person said, "So much for compassion and peace and open-mindedness." Yup. Where did that go? Now, I have to say, this is a little bit personal for me, how much this video and this message truly bothers me, because you guys might not know this, but I became estranged from my dad in 2016. And so, wow, nearly 10 years. So I have no father in my life. I have no dad. We had a really toxic relationship. I was abused by my stepmother for years while he just watched and did nothing. And that's something that really makes me sad. That's this empty space in my life where, you know, I have a great stepfather. I have a cool father-in-law who I've really gotten to know. I mean, we're not technically married, but you know what I mean? It's like the same thing. But, well, I don't think it really affects me a ton these days. It was a really hard and sad thing for me not to have a father in my life. The idea that somebody would have a meaningful and positive relationship with a parent, but simply throw it away because they don't like how that person votes, is not just fucking insane to me. It's actually insulting to so many people who have lost their parents, who don't have a parent, who are estranged from their parent, or what have you, who would kill to have a parent in their life who loves them and wouldn't give a shit who they check off at the ballot box once every 2 to 4 years. It really does make me angry to see somebody casting away family members for such an inane reason, and let alone doing it yourself in your own life is bad enough. Going on the internet and encouraging other people, trying to advocate to break up people's families, that's just demented. Like, that's sick. Wherever that's coming from is probably some personal damage or trauma or whatever, but it's just a sick way to spend your time and to use your capital you have as a social media influencer. There's also something so creepy and controlling about this, threatening adults with consequences. Like, these aren't children, these aren't toddlers, and you don't have the right to control them and how they think or who they support politically. You get to decide who you vote for. You get to make up your own mind. You don't get to control other people's minds and make their minds up for them. That's actually not how a healthy relationship between adults works. Imagine the inverse, and I actually know people, because I'm out here in West Michigan where there's very Christian, Republican, rural communities. I actually know people who grew up in that kind of community and have become more liberal, and their parents have threatened them or threatened to cut them off if they vote for Kamala or if they voted for Biden in 2020. I think that's crazy. I think that's intolerant. It's closed-minded. No one person's vote really makes anything of a difference. And I'm sure if Jeffrey was presented with that kind of scenario, Jeffrey would say that's psycho behavior. And you know what? I would agree. Jeffrey would say that's abusive behavior. And you know what? I would agree. But you can't have it both ways. You can't oppose that kind of thing, then think it's fine to do it in the opposite direction. Well, I guess you can, but it makes you a total hypocrite. And Jeffrey's view of politics, as if these complex issues that divide us are really so simple that it's just kindness and compassion versus hatred. Give me a break. You are vastly oversimplifying the issues facing this country, and the fact that many of them are complicated and nuanced and serious, and good people of good faith can come down on either side on many of these complex questions that divide us. Plus, even if you are a Kamala supporter, you are a liberal, and your goal is to convince your stupid MAGA parents or whatever you look at them as, cutting them off is not the way to do that. You have a much better chance of changing their views, or at least moderating them somewhat, by maintaining a relationship and sharing different perspectives, sharing with them information that they won't see in their echo chambers, asking them questions that make them think critically about some of the things they're believing or accepting. But you can't do any of that if you just cut them off because they dare disagree with you and your infinite wisdom, Jeffrey Marsh. You know, guys, I try not to let these videos work me up, but this one really bothered me. And of course, Jeffrey wanted to play the victim because Jeffrey got a few mean comments on this. And so Jeffrey put out another video taking some random comment who said Jeffrey looked like the clown from It and saying that all Republicans are evil. Yeah. Take a listen to this follow-up.
When you look at me, do you see a human being? The right wants to unhuman us. They want to accuse us. They want to say the worst, awful things about trans folks so that we are unhuman, so that we're shameful, disgusting. And once we are unhuman to them, that means they can morally make sense of doing anything they want to us, putting our lives in danger, passing laws against us. And to put it in political terms, if you look at me and see a human being, you are a Democrat. If you look at me and see evil, disgusting, subhuman, unhuman, different and less, you are a Republican. And I really wish it was not that way.
See, I don't think this video landed the way that Jeffrey hoped it would, because I bet you a lot of people saw this video and were like, guess I'm a Republican now. To be clear, of course I view Jeffrey as a human being, not as subhuman or any of that, not at all. But what I do view Jeffrey as is a human whose advocacy is evil and disturbing and terrible in many ways, from trying to destroy people's families and have them cut off their appearances over differences of opinion to very questionable behaviors on Jeffrey's Patreon. You can go look that up if you're interested in that story. It's so frustrating to see somebody like Jeffrey so blatantly use their identity and their victim script as shield from legitimate criticism. Yes, some people were mean, saying Jeffrey looked like the clown from It. I don't support mean behavior. I shouldn't even be laughing, but like, I don't support that. But there's plenty of valid criticisms being made, and your deflection and defense is just, everyone thinks I'm subhuman and they're just all hateful bigots towards trans people, which Jeffrey isn't even trans. Jeffrey is non-binary, which is not transgender or transsexual in any meaningful sense of the word. In fact, people like Blair White very specifically argue that non-binary should not be considered trans. So I don't even buy that to begin with. But regardless, the fact that some people are being mean to you doesn't mean there aren't plenty of legitimate criticisms, or that everybody who's a Republican just hates you because of your identity. No, they hate you because of the crazy things you're saying online and the terrible advice you're giving impressionable young people on TikTok. So maybe, Jeffrey, for 5 seconds, you could stop playing the victim and consider that maybe, just maybe, some of your critics actually have a point. But what did you guys think of these Jeffrey Marsh videos and of Jeffrey more broadly? Do let me know in the comments below, and do hit that like button to reward my suffering through this really disturbing stuff. Today, this TikToker is openly bragging about being an authoritarian communist. She seems very normal and stable. Let's take a look.
Hi, I'm a tanky.
Oh, guys. Tanky is like a derogatory term for an authoritarian communist who supports repressive authoritarian regimes. And she's like, yes, that's me. Girl, it's giving unhinged. I just cannot imagine an ideology like communism killing so many people in the 20th century and yet going on the internet and being like, yes, that's my man. But there's so much more coming up in this video.
Tanky is a silly made-up word. I'm not sure who taught the liberals this word, but I want to explain something to you. The type of state that I believe in would be a bottom-up structure where the people who have been most marginalized in our current state have the most authority in the next.
Okay, stop for a second. That might sound nice, giving authority to the people who didn't have it in the current system. It might sound nice at first glance, but if you actually think about it, it's kind of insane. I mean, she's openly saying she doesn't want equality. She doesn't want an open society where everyone gets an equal shot. She just wants to do inequality in the opposite direction. Basically, to invert or turn upside down the historical, structural oppression and imbalances and give the other people a turn to be the oppressors and oppress different groups of people. How exactly does that make you different than the segregationists, than the people who opposed women's suffrage, from the people who made it illegal to be gay? I mean, you're essentially advocating for just switching around and doing something similar to different groups. You might be the bad guy, babe. But maybe she doesn't mean anything crazy, and maybe she's actually going to turn this around and explain somehow something normal she's advocating for, right? Like, let's keep an open mind.
I believe in taking away the car keys of authority and giving it to everyone else. It is far more democratic than what we have in the United States.
Okay, I'm gonna let you finish, but we might need to do a little remedial lesson on what that word democratic means. Because if only some people have say over the society or the government and not others, that ain't democratic, babe. And just taking the power from one group and giving it to another, also not democratic. Your delulu is showing. But we actually haven't even watched the craziest part of this video yet, guys.
And that is what I advocate for. Authority is not inherently a bad thing. It matters who has the authority. Like, for instance, I do not believe that white people should be in the vanguard or in positions of authority.
Oh?
That historically and presently has not gone well.
Y'all, my expectations for TikTok are on the floor at this point, but sometimes I still hear and see things that shock me a little bit. And this was one of those things. White people should be banned from, like, being politicians or wielding power or anything because historically and currently that hasn't gone well. Babe, what? Do you hear yourself? You're literally advocating for reverse Jim Crow. It is actually demented and evil to deprive individuals of rights or opportunities because of the actions of some nebulous collective that they didn't choose to belong to. I mean, what you're saying is no different than saying Muslims should lose their rights because a few Muslims committed an attack on society. This is the logic of the racists and the bigots, the people you think you're fighting against. And there's nothing more annoying to me than a self-hating woke white person, really. I mean, they're not going to pick you. They're still going to hate all white people, your leftist comrades. Like, this isn't going to mark you as special or different, babe. It's just not. Now, the final bit of this video is where things get actually kind of frightening.
And I believe in liberation by any means necessary. You do not get liberation by saying please. I hope this helps.
So, if this was supposed to make us more sympathetic to the tankies, it did not have that effect. In fact, it basically confirmed my exact suspicion that I had about these people, that they are deranged. I mean, what she says there at the end is code language. Liberation by any means necessary. She's saying she supports terrorism. I'm not exaggerating. That's the kind of thing that, for example, the people who argue the October 7 attacks were justified will say. Liberation by any means necessary, including slaughtering women and children and kidnapping innocent people. It's actually evil, violates kindergarten level morality of two wrongs don't make a right, and tramples all over and just rips up and throws away the teachings of actual successful social justice activists like Martin Luther King Jr., who always advocated for nonviolence and who inspired a radical social change in just decades. But this is where that extreme ideology takes you, and it's really scary and frightening stuff that is unfortunately somehow allowed to spread all over TikTok. Yet my takes, like daring to say that Zer pronouns are not valid or whatever, that will get flagged and taken down as hate speech. But all this is totally fine. Once again, parents out there, make sure you know what your kids are watching online so they don't end up tankies on the internet. Let me know what you think of this crazy video in the comments below, and do hit that like button while you're at it.